What up guys, SuperMetal993 here bringing you another album review, and this time we're going to kick off 2026 album reviews with an album that I have been so hyped up for when it comes to the release radar in 2026. As far as records that have been announced so far, this was the album that I was most looking forward to, so what better way to come back to doing album reviews than to review an album that has blown me away, spoiler alert. But yeah, today I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Gaerea entitled Lost. This is released under Century Media Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with Gaerea, they are a four-piece kind of black, I'm just going to say a black metal band, and I've been following these guys for quite some time now. I first got introduced to this band on their debut album in 2018 titled Unsettling Whispers, which was more of a straight up black metal album, like no frills, nothing outside the box sort of thinking. It was just straightforward punching black metal, how we like it, and it was a great album nonetheless. But what made me fall in love with this band was their second album in 2020 entitled Limbo, which was released under Century Media Records. And this album for me, what first encapsulated us was the artwork. I think this artwork is absolutely stunning, done by one of my favourite artists of all time. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but Eleran, I believe it is. Actually, I'm going to attempt. Eleran Cantor, I believe his name is. Absolutely love this artwork, and I was drawn to it, and oh my god, this album is absolutely sublime. If you're into black metal and you haven't heard this, I'd be very fucking surprised, because this made the rounds of the black metal community and saying like, this is some sick shit, check it out. And if you haven't already, make sure you do so. But for me anyway, they're the best in their discography so far has to be their 2022 album entitled Mirage, which this album showcased why Gaerea was such a powerhouse coming out of the box, especially on Limbo. Like, they made their presence felt, I would say, but with Mirage they pushed their envelope and brought some more intensity, more power, more prowess, I would say, and just crafted an absolute masterpiece of a black metal album. Like, I absolutely love that record, like through and through. It is absolutely fantastic. So if you want some black metal, definitely check out that album. And then fast forward to 2024, and the band has a lineup change or two, and they release an album under cease and desist again called Coma. And this album for me is probably the one that I've probably listened to the least, besides Unsettling Whispers. Probably about the same, I would say, I've listened to. But Coma to me was one of those albums that I wanted to love it, but I just couldn't click with it. And I listened to it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and it just didn't really have the presence or the intensity that I wanted to hear from Gaerea. And they were experimenting a little bit with more of a post black metal sound, and I can hear that, but at the time it just didn't click with it. But I have to say, going back to it when in preparation for this review, it's not as forgetful as I thought it was, shall we say. Like, it is a good album, it's just not as good, in my opinion, as Limbo or Mirage, and it's probably on the same wavelength, as I said, as Unsettling Whispers. But, you know, you can see where they were going with the sound, shall we say. But last year, 2025, they released 2 singles, which was Submerged and Hellbound. Now, Submerged, when I first heard it, I thought, it's alright, it's nothing amazing, nothing really to shout about, shall we say. But when they dropped the track Hellbound, I was fucking blown away by that song, and obviously they announced the album as well. But that song, if I'd had a single of the year for last year, Hellbound would be it, because that song just, I listened to it so fucking much last year. It is one of the best songs that I heard last year, and it's holding its own in 2026 as well as being one of my favourite singles. So you never know, come year's end, it'll probably be my single of the year, but we'll see. But we'll see what happens if it comes to that. And now we'll get to March, and the album is out, so we had a bit of a while to wait for this album, but now let's say I can do a review, and here we are today to do that. So anyway, it's 9 tracks and runs around 46 minutes in length, and what can I say other than this album has truly sparked my love for music again and wanting to talk to it and get in front of a camera and talk about music, because this album I've shared so much with so many people saying you just need to check out the new Gaerea. It is a masterpiece. Like, you need to hear it. It's amazing. Have you listened to it? You know, spamming people with it, because this album to me is so far my album of the year for this year. We've had so many great releases and so many good albums, but nothing has truly blown me away and gone, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, wow. Nothing's gave us that feeling in my heart other than Gaerea's Lost. Like, this is an absolute masterpiece of an album. This is what I wanted Coma to be. Like as I said, Coma's not a bad album, but this is the sound what you could hear they were trying to go for or evolving into when it comes to like progression and growth as a band, and taking influence, and like there's a bit of a like alternative metal sort of vibe in there, a little bit of a metalcore, post-hardcore influence in there already, with the diabolical, just intense and blistering black metal sound that you know from Gaerea. So it definitely has that kind of mirage sort of intensity that I was looking for, should we say, but giving it a lot more atmosphere, a lot more like prowess, and a lot more, I would say it gives it also a lot more beauty as well, because there is a lot of sounds to this album that really give it that overall feeling in us, because it has the heaviness, it has a little bit of beauty in there, a little bit of sorrow, but it also has like diabolical intensity, blistering fast blast beats, and just overall power and just intensity. Like, it has it all, if you ask me, and the production kind of adds to that as well, because it's a very bright and punchy production. Like, the drum overall tones are very well precisely played, but also very finely mixed. Like, it has such a crack to it. Like, you can hear each cymbal hit, the snare is just cutting through the mix very finely. The double bass action, you can hear it all. Just the mixing is done absolutely incredible when it comes to the drum work, and just the overall tones just give it that overall atmosphere and pounding nature that it just hits you like an absolute freight train. It just sounds absolutely incredible, along with a very thunderous bass tone. Like, the bass tone is kind of falls into that category of what I love about a solid bass tone, where it doesn't have that overall clanky sort of cut through the mix. It just sits there in a nice level that it's just giving it that boom factor, and that, but you can hear each note definition going on, and it just doesn't feel like it's like faded into the mix, like you forgot about the bass, or it's to the point where you've forgotten about the bass and it needs to be up front. Like, it sits very fine in the mix and very well done. And the guitar tone overall as well, just, it sounds crisp. It's got a very bright sort of texture to it that really sets the overall atmosphere to give it a more, it's that black metal tone where it's like verging on a heavy tone, but it's just power and just precise with it. It just sounds gritty and just gives it that overall just more intense feel to it, that it doesn't feel heavy. It just feels like it just slaps hard. Like, that's the only way. It doesn't give a thump, it just gives a hard slap. That's the only way I could really describe it, but it just has this overall presence to it. And compared to the other stuff that I've listened to, that's what's setting it aside, is the overall tones that you've got on this album. And then there's other elements of like electronic influence and like, you know, alternative, like, you know, rock sort of feels in there, just to break up the atmosphere, but it still doesn't let you forget that this is primarily a black metal record or a post-black metal album, whatever you want to call it. That it really has that sort of feel, like, you know, you don't want to forget this. Like, the initial track that you open up with, Luminary, like, I was hoping that this track would just set off the record, and it did perfectly. Like, the whole one that I was looking forward to, especially after hearing Submerged and Hellbound, was I wanted to hear more of that presence with the vocals, because the vocals, like, on this album is what sells it a little bit more for me. So the already amazing production, but the vocals, there is so much range going to these vocals, like, from, like, those kind of mid-range sort of shouts, like hardcore metalcore, post-hardcore metalcore sort of esque to them, that just sound really powerful, and just it gives it a defining factor, if you ask me, like, when it comes to black metal, because a lot of black metal, and even can form into death metal as well, there's a little bit of a monotone to it, or there's a tradition going along. But when you sound unique for not sounding unique, if you ask me. You're taking things to a different aspect when it comes to these vocals. Like, it's not what you expect, but it works so fucking well. Like, with those, like, mid sort of shouts and chant sort of vocals, to the like high vocals that are on there, like they have a little bit more grit and a little bit more just intensity to them. And then with the low vocals as well, they sound so fucking powerful. And when black metal bands use lows to add to the effect or the artistry, you know, to add to the image of it, it just works so fucking well, and it just catches you off guard, because, like, when you listen to your black metal, you expect it just to be all highs throughout and maybe a mid thrown in there, but you don't expect lows as much, and the lows on here just sound incredible. And then you get to the half screams and the singing moments, where, especially the half screams, they kind of put me in mind of, like, Architects sort of vibe, like that post-hardcore sort of image, but it sounds so melodic, and it gives it so much more power, and it sounds monolithic. Like, it sounds huge and anthemic in a way. Like, it gives us goosebumps. And I will say, over the past couple of years, there's not a lot of albums that have gave me goosebumps, and this album did it with the vocals. Like, the vocals just sound great, and then when the cleaner vocals come in as well, like, it just sounds so beautiful and kind of has a bit of sorrowful feel to it. Like, it just sounds a bit like, a little bit in an essence of, like, influence of, like, depressive in a way. Like, there's a bit, the only way I could describe it is sorrowful. That's the only way I could describe it, but there is a sense of beauty to it. And so all these elements that I'm talking about, like, it just adds to it, the overall sound, and adds to the aspect of why I love this album so much. And then on release day, I believe it was, they dropped a music video for the 8th song on this album, called Nomad. And Nomad is probably my 3rd favourite song. Like, when you get to that song, it is such a powerful fucking song. Like, I was left in awe listening to that song. Like, when it got to it, like, I was listening to the album multiple times when it dropped, but when it got to Nomad, every time I was just left just basking in this absolute masterpiece, and just sitting there just like, wow. Like, wow. That's all I can really describe it as. And then I will say that, I know it's like abbreviated, but it's LBRNTH, which is, I'm guessing, Labyrinth. That song, it kind of has this little bit of, like, a sleep talking-y sort of vibe, and this, like, alternative metal rock sort of feel, like, of electronics, that kind of, like, brings the pace of the album back a little bit, and just gives you, like, this little bit of an electronic sort of breather. And that I kind of appreciate, because it comes at the right moments, from Luminary to Cyclone. Like, you've got this sort of, like, this sort of journey, this wave you're riding with this album, and then it gets there and you're just like, there's a little bit of a breather, just to, like, take on board what you've just listened to, and then it goes into Nomad, and you're just like, right, this is Gaerea. This is Gaerea bringing Coma and just evolving it into an absolute powerhouse of a record. And I'm going to be honest, this album absolutely, as I said, blew us away, and it is one of the best albums I've heard so far this year. And dare I say it, it is my favourite album that I've listened to this year so far. That we're only in March, we've still got fucking 9 months ahead of us of potentially incredible music, and I will be along for the ride and doing as many reviews as I can and when I feel it. But this album is going to take some beating because I can't stop listening to this album. It is so far my album of the year, and for that reason I'm going to give this album a solid 10 out of 10. I can't give it any less. Like, you may think I'm biased, but for coming back after doing reviews for not a while and just coming in straight away giving out a 10 out of 10. But honestly, as far as albums that gave us a buzz in the past couple of years, this is definitely one of those albums, and I can't get enough of it. So make sure you check it out. I'll leave links down below of where you can check out this album, and make sure you pick it up on CD. I'm going to be picking myself up a copy very soon on payday, because this album is just incredible and needs to become part of the collection, if you ask me. But yeah, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and let us know what you thought of the new Gaerea album, because I think, as I said, it's fantastic. And let us know if there's any other albums that you've been blown away by so far in 2026. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you until next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.